And we're back. Another NFL in London podcast. Wade and Ryan. Last podcast episode, we went through all the free agency AFC. So now we can talk about some of the NFC stuff and even non-NFL news. But it is sort of NFL related that Tiger Woods gets another DUI, and he's got more DUIs in the past 25 years than the Cowboys have playoff wins.
Honestly, not doing terrible driving. Terrible driver.
Yeah,
should
like
not
for
be...
a guy who's supposed to be the best driver in the world, he actually doesn't apply that.
It's just been very unfortunate. Yeah, we're in that like kind of dead zone in the NFL where we're just desperate. It's like, can someone commit a crime?
Desperate for any news.
Could somebody do something? We need like a violation of the NFL code of conduct or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at all the NFL players, and it's obviously ridiculous with someone like Tiger, who literally could just take an Uber everywhere for the rest of his life and never put a dent in his fortune.
Third time he's flipped his car.
Yeah.
It's like most people will never even get in like a bumper, like a rear bumper accident. He's flipping his car every decade.
Same neighborhood in Jupiter, Florida. You just go, man. And because, a lot of the NFL guys have learned, hey, don't drink and drive. This guy is just like, and his mugshots, you see the progression of his mugshots. It's like, oh, and Tiger, how you fallen?
The NFL, only other news was the NFL did get a little humble pie at the flag football matches where they learned that, maybe this is a bit trickier than we thought.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady looked good, and he has mentioned about how he did think about, he's like, what if I did come back? And the NFL's like, no, you're not coming back.
No, I agree. The NFL was like, you're done. You cannot be the owner.
Yeah.
You've already violated as many rules in retirement as you did when you were in the league in like 2 years. So he's on pace to just like, how many rules can I circumvent? So God knows what we have when Brady becomes an owner of a team 1 year and just gets losing draft picks every year for punishments.
Yeah, full on. I mean, the other NFL news, I think we did see, or if you saw this in Florida, that the state of Florida has repealed the Rooney Rule, and that basically hiring black people
the Rooney Rule. They should put in quotes, basically.
Yeah. Basically, that's saying it's discrimination. It's like, I don't think it's meant like that. But anyway, that's Florida, that's the way Florida rolls. So, and then Caleb Williams, obviously, he wants to trademark Iceman now that Val Kilmer's dead. But
what he wants to,
I think a lot of.
Did you say he wants
to trademark? Caleb Williams does, yeah. He's trying to trademark it, and people are like, "What are you doing?"
Did he call himself the Iceman? I've never heard anyone call him Iceman.
I think someone else has called it because his how cool he is in his fourth quarter comebacks, and he's been going. And there's a few other people like, "I'm the original Iceman."
I mean, that's a really risky nickname to have, right? Because all of a sudden you start throwing picks in the fourth quarter, and Iceman takes a very different meaning to it.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I think it's one of those things. Also, why just play football? I get you're trying to sell merch, but just play football.
Yeah, come on.
Let's get some playoff wins before we start doing stuff like that.
Trademarking fake nicknames.
So we'll go through, we look at some of the teams. We're going to go through the NFC. We'll start in the NFC East with the Cowboys. Obviously, the first thing they do is they put the franchise tag on George Pickens, sign Sam Howell to 1 year, $2.5 million, I guess, just in case Zach gets injured again. Javonte Williams, they bring him back, 3 years, $24 million. Sign Matt Hennessy to 1 year contract. Defensive end Sam Williams, 1 year, $3 million. Rashawn Gary, they bring in from Green Bay. Another defensive lineman in Ogbania, then Kobe Durant, Darian Kendrick, cornerbacks, safety PJ Locke, Jalen, and then Brandon Aubrey, received a second round, $5.6 million restricted free agent tender. But so basically other teams can try to sign him, but Dallas has to match it. Dallas, obviously woeful season. Dak still throws the ball around.
Yeah.
And he's got CD, but that defense was just dog shit. So they've obviously made a lot of changes there. But is it going to make a difference when you've got sort of rot coming down from Jerry Jones?
Well, that's the thing, right? That's the biggest problem is like, do you trust Jerry Jones as a talent evaluator at this point in his age, right? Like, I'm sorry, but like, I don't think he's grinding tape, looking at going into all these things, watching the combine,
medical
seeing
tape,
everyone.
maybe, but that's about it.
And the fact that they've got 2 first-round picks this year, so they're going to have to probably put them both on defense. The way that offense is going, if you've got Pickens now, you've got CD, you've got Javonte Williams, I don't see, and even Ferguson, their tight end, it was great last year for them. So I feel like offense is set. Maybe offensive line protect Dak a bit, because if he goes down, your season's over. But to me, it's just, I don't know what Jerry Jones is going to do. The guy keeps trading fourth round picks for terrible receivers in the offseason. So it's like, I just don't know if again, he's getting older now. Does he get a bit antsy, or does he want to jump up and make a big splash, get someone big, like a big name, where he maybe moves both his picks? So I think he could just be he loves it, the absolute wild card of the draft of what Dallas is going to do. But for now, they've just said, we're going to have to just chuck it around the field with CeeDee Lamb and Pickens and just hope we win 40-38 most games, because even though the defense did look better a bit at the end of last year, they with the Williams pickup, but the Quentin Williams pickup, they're going to need more. And you can't replace Micah Parsons. You can't replace that with what you have. So unless you're going to trade up both your picks and get another guy to replace him, I mean, it's been a fine offseason. If Dallas let Pickens go, it would have been a disaster. They've kind of been handcuffed. And are they really going to pay do the Bengals where you're paying $75 million to your receivers each year? So I mean, it's a gamble, but he's the gambler, right? He loves that moniker of him. So we'll see.
Sure. He loves it, but as you age, you sort of lose that edge a bit. And I'm not trying to play ageism here with him, but he seems to be less focused. Maybe his kid's getting involved in it. To your point with the defense, the secondary still needs some work. I mean, I don't know what the guys they've got, but you need to shut down instead of just letting these gaping hole passes get through. And that's the problem. Dak, as you say, Dak puts up lots of points. It's obviously the injury with him last year where he didn't fulfill himself. But Dallas is, there's lofty aspirations there in a very difficult division. New York started over again, obviously bringing in Harbaugh. First thing, they bring in Isaiah Likely, Calvin Austin III, Isaiah Hodgkins, Darnell Mooney for a 1 year, $10 million. Gunnar Olszewski re-signed him. Elamuno re-signed. A couple of re-signing. Their offensive line all sort of re-signed as well. Tremaine Edwards signed a 3 year, $36 million. Cam Jones. Micah McFadden, Greg Newsome, and then, of course, a couple safeties and just a couple other re-signings. But, I mean, this is going to be to see what happens. I mean, Cam Scatabo is saying there's no such thing as CTE, amongst other things, which makes you think, do you have CTE?
He was also drinking beer out of a shoe in the offseason, so on stream. So, I mean, I wouldn't really take Dr. Scatabo as his person. I like what the Giants have done. I think the Giants could be the team that could weirdly sneak and make it a little bit of a challenge this year. I think if Neighbors comes back fully, I think losing Wan'Dale Robinson hurts them. I think he's been really good for them the last couple of years, and to not, especially having the other guy coming off the massive knee injury that he had, and not having that one cheek. Calvin Austin's fine. I think Isaiah Likely's really good, but to me, it's just it's all about Jackson Dart, and you got at least you have Harbaugh, who kind of went through this just recently with Lamar Jackson. So he's going to have that little bit. If they go out and use the 5th pick and get someone like Jeremiah Love to work with, Scatabo, and then that would likely, they could be a really decent offense if Jackson Dart takes that next jump. I think Harbaugh, that team has just been going through since Joe Judge to Daboll to just bad coach. And it just needs a little an adult in the room kind of stabilize the ship, and I think Harbaugh is going to do a good job, and I think the Giants could be that sneaky team, especially if some of the younger guys, could kind of step up a second year. I think they're a fun team to watch, and I think they're going to be really interested in what they do at number 5, because they got a lot of they've spent a lot on defense in the past, but I think if they need to make Jackson Dart work, they need to either get the best offensive lineman to protect him or get him another receiver that where Neighbors coming off an ACL tour isn't going to be your only dependable guy on that field, because that's going to be a problem. You're going to be in the same spot you were last year.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, your point, it has felt a bit like a foster home where people just sort of turn around. There's not really a long-term solution there. And they did have some moments last year where are they good? Could they be good? Defense flourished, and then there's some times the offense just stepped up, and you're like, okay, they've got a running game, they got a passing game, oh, they've got an injury game. So it is going to be interesting to see how they're able to keep up. But I think when you have, coming from a position where you are expected to be the worst team in the NFC East, so what else you got to lose? At that point, Washington had a big downfall,
I think they'll
but
be better
you're
than
still.
Washington. I think
they could be better than Washington. I think they could be, depending. We'll get into Philadelphia, who traded for Andy Dalton from Carolina. exchange for a 7th-round pick in 2027. They get Marquise Brown for 1 year. Damian Pierce they bring in. Elijah Moore gets signed to them. They got 4 tight ends that they signed. So they got Dallas Goedert, Johnny Munt, Stone Smart, Grant Calcutta. And then some offensive guys. Jordan Davis signed a 3-year, $78 million contract extension. And then you've got Tariq Woolen. You know, the Eagles, I think there's just so much infighting. Obviously, what was going on with the team and, you know, with A.J. Brown and everything else that was going on about Jalen Hurts and sort of changes in the team. And you wonder, it's like, okay, you guys had a big fall from grace. What are you going to do this year to try to be the best team in this division?
I don't know, man. I think this team could be the one that has the drop-off that doesn't make the playoff. I could see the Eagles having a big drop. I don't think Sirianni's the type of coach that it seems like he's good when everything's clicking. You know, if they trade A.J. Brown, what's this offense going to look? They were terrible last year. They couldn't get anything going.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts doesn't seem to have a relationship with anybody. He's just like a robot out there. Nobody seems to be on his side. That defense, you know, as good as it was, you know, are they going to even just talk that they trade Jalen Carter? Like, I just think Howie Roseman's probably got a couple moves in his satchel that he's going to kind of be thrown out there. I don't know. I'm just not excited about Philly. I think if they trade AJ Brown to the Patriots, which I think they will, unless, you know, okay, if they hit on a rookie, but just having Devontae Smith and Goddard as your receivers just doesn't really, like, I know they brought in Marquise Brown, but he hasn't really done anything in the last 3-4 years. Doesn't feel like he's the one, and that's really putting a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts. Weirdly, when the biggest pressure hits, plays his best football. In the regular season, he's been so up and down. And I just don't think Sirianni's the guy that if the ship starts going off tracks, he can bring it back. I just think he's so weirdly toxic, and that fan base goes from like thinking he's the best to hate, wanting him fired in the span of 2 weeks every other week. I think this could be a Philly, maybe not even making the playoff season. If I was going to pick, I could just see, like, Saquon didn't look the same. And just, I don't see the offense being that dynamic, to be honest with you. It's going to have to be a lot of defensive stops. And I don't know if they can do it. So I'm not high on Philly. I'm not high on Philly.
Yeah, they seemed sluggish last year. And you wonder, too, if getting rid of Brown is going to help Smith. Like, because you're sort of splitting reps and you're wondering the attention, it's like, well, maybe this is a time for him to shine. Like, get rid of AJ, you open up the defense, you say you make it a little more hungry for Jalen Hurts. So, yeah, I think there's that hangover. You have such levels of expectation. And them in the Chiefs last year, how do you rebound from that? Washington also had a big come down last year, and Jaden Daniels, and I think with the coaching, and they went from going from playoff darlings to not. Marcus Mariota, they re-signed 1 year, $7 million, with up $11 million in incentives. Bring in Jerome Ford, a 1-year deal. Jeremy McNichols re-signs. Rashad White comes in, and then you bring in Treylon Burks, re-signed 1 year, $4 million. Van Jefferson, they bring in. Dynami Brown. Nkokwo, signed a 3-year as a wide receiver, $30 million. Laramie Tunstall signs as well. You've got Nick Alleghetti, new deal. You got a few guys re-signed. All their O-line seems to re-signed. And then some edge rushers as well. Some big edge rushers they bring in. Odefe Owe, which we know 4-year, $100 million. So they're really focusing on bringing the D in, because I think last year they were struggling with that. And then re-sign Jake Moody as well. A lot of big deals on defense for Washington. I mean, still, I think the running game, you sort of wonder what's going to happen. You're going to rely on McLaurin for wide receiver. How do you find with Washington with such a dramatic drop from last year?
Well, they decided to just become like an old team overnight last year, and it showed, having, Von Miller and Deebo Samuels, and they're kind of bringing all these guys in that just didn't really understand. And to me, their whole season will be, can Jaden Daniels last? Like, he's just not big. You look at him, you're like, dude, he can't take those hits. Like, even like Lamar, you're seeing him getting beat up in the season. You've seen what these guys that, unless you're just multiple, like, look what happened to Russ when he lost his speed and lost his mobility. It just fell off a cliff. And again, their receivers with Terry McLaurin's, going to be 31 years old and coming off not a great year last year. Their running game stinks. And to me, if they don't protect Jaden Daniels, nothing matters what they're going to do if they play defense. If you got to depend on Mariota, even though he plays well and he's probably one of the best backups in the league, you kind of need him, because I don't know if you can trust Jaden Daniels to play a full season. So I'm fascinated to see how they're going to keep him healthy, like because he was like their leading rusher. They just couldn't get anything going. So I think maybe that's why someone like Jeremiah Love, even with they need that running game that just takes that bit of
Yeah.
pressure off of Jane Daniels, because I just don't think he can take another season of beatings like he did that one, because at such a young age and being his size, it's just not a good combination. It's terrible.
Yeah, it did feel like there was like a small ball of pizza dough, and they were just spreading it too thin all over the place. It was just uneven, and you're sort of looking, going, "How are you going to feed?" And it just wasn't. It just did not look good for them in the way that they went down. In a way, sort of watching the same way that Houston went down, but Houston rebounded. You sort of go, was that a flash 2 years ago, or are you guys able to take the next steps, or will you be the worst team in the division? Heading to the NFC North, where the Bears re-signed Case Keenum, bring in Khalif Raymond, wide receiver, re-signed a lot of the offensive line, bring in Jedrick Willis, Garrett Bradbury, who we brought in as a center, and then some defensive things on the back end. Devin Bush, which was nice. Kobe Bryant, 3-year, $40 million deal, which is good. Jalen Jones re-signed. Bring in Jack Sanborn as a linebacker. And safety Elijah Hicks re-signed. I mean, I think that Bears have done a lot. We got a lot of sort of pieces there. With DJ Moore going, I think there's going to be, so what do we do in the draft now? We've got a lot of pieces. The O-line was better. We weren't having as many interceptions, not having as many sacks. But again, a very competitive division to be in.
Yeah, it's tricky, but I think Ben Johnson just has all the confidence in the world that he can get the offense moving. And I think the Bears have to be kind of conscious about giving out big contracts, because they're going to have a lot of guys owed money in a couple of years. You're going to have Caleb, you're going to have Roma Dunze, you're going to have Loughlin, you're going to have probably a couple of defensive guys that are going to be up. So a lot of your money is going to go when you Luther Burden, like again, that's why you kind of had to get rid of DJ Moore. Getting rid of him.
Yeah.
The Bears losing their center, I think, is going to be really interesting to see. I think that was the biggest loss, him retiring early and just kind of losing that connection. So when it was working so well late in the season, and to me, I think the Bears, I'm wondering if they're going to do something with the run game, because I just don't see Swift lasting the season, and I still even think Monangai. It didn't feel like whenever Monangai had the chance to just take the job, he never did. It always went back to Swift, and it just feels like they need that kind of home run kind of hitter. I think that would just be such a part of their offense, kind of the way Jahmyr Gibbs was to Ben Johnson. He kind of needs his Gibbs, and he just doesn't have it with Swift. I think they try to make him it, but it doesn't work. And to them, I think Ben Johnson's going to have the offense scoring 25, 30 a game. Settle the defense up. Let's get the defense going. They need to pass. I'm surprised they didn't push more for Max Crosby. Maybe they still do, and try and push later and try and get them on a cheaper thing. But they do need pass rush. And I think that's the thing the Bears, especially in their division against all those quarterbacks and those offenses, they need guys who are going to, because again, if you can't get to Jordan Love, he's going to pick you apart, or, Jared Goff, they're going to find ways to do it. So they have to do that. The Bears, I still think they got one more move in their back pocket that they're going to do before all is said and done.
I'm hoping we got 3 moves in the pocket. But yeah, you're right. There was I think when it came to the defense, that pass rush, you weren't worried. You knew you had time. And that was always a problem, that we didn't have an edge rusher, didn't have someone that would instill the fear of getting that ball out of there. So yeah, I think there's a few other things. I would, to your point, I would like a number 1 running back. I don't know if this is someone we draft and put in, you just wait and see, or you go for whatever's left out there. But yeah, I think that there's still a few moves that need to be made there. Detroit was a big disappointment. They fell last year, and you question why it would happen. They get rid of Montgomery. They bring in Isaiah Pacheco. They signed Teddy Bridgewater as a backup for 1 year. Greg Dortch, tight end Tyler Conklin they bring in as well, just because, obviously, of the injuries last year. A lot of offensive tackles they bring in, and then some linebackers as well. DJ Wonnum, Damone Clark, Rakesh Singh. The defense, obviously losing Hutchinson last year to injury was tough, but there was a lot of things. And you wonder, was it just the coach always going for it? Why did Detroit have such a falling out last year? And what can they do to get back? Because it's competitive, but Dan Campbell just can't be throwing his balls on the table every play.
No, and he even said it a couple of years ago when he was like, maybe that was our chance, right? Because he saw the kind of he lost both his coordinators, and the last part of last season he was calling plays, and it was a bit of a disaster. Even though Jahmyr Gibbs, you still got Jahmyr Gibbs, you got Jameis Jameson Williams, you got Jared Goff, you got Penei Sewell, you got all the pieces everywhere. Brian Branch, Hutchinson, a healthy Hutchinson. You got all the pieces. Is Jared
St.
Goff
Brown too?
St. Brown but is Jared Goff that guy? Like, who's, again, we've seen him get to the Super Bowl, but he wasn't as good last year. And I think as he gets older and as you got these guys, your window does close, especially unless like Jared Goff's not. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Mahomes. He's not Burrow. He's solid when all the pieces are there and he has the play caller. And I think if they don't get the play calling right, and Jared Goff's going to have to, he's going to have his Jared Goff games, I think they're going to be in trouble. And I just don't. I think Dan Campbell saying that the quiet part out loud about maybe that was our shot. Yeah. I think it kind of resonates throughout the room, and you kind of saw it last year where they just didn't seem to have it. The Lions, like, they were the 1 seed the year before. They were just couldn't even make the playoffs this year. I mean, if they don't make the playoffs again with all that talent, I mean, you got to start looking at Dan Campbell, I think.
Yeah, you got to look at him, and I think what you were saying earlier about Jared Goff and go, look, he plays well in the system, in the Ben Johnson system, but if you open him up, he's maybe not as clutch as you'd expect him to be. And so you look and go, is in the draft, are they looking at quarterback? Are they looking to maybe grab a late rounder or someone that they can back up? Because, Teddy Bridgewater's fine, but maybe you need a kid to ride the pines for a year or two to learn it all and be able to pull him in if you need it. Green Bay is having, obviously, issues in terms of salary, what kind of money they got. They bring in wide receiver Sky Moore. They bring in Sean Ryan, a 3-year, $33 million. Zaire Franklin was a big one in the Colts. They exchanged for defensive tackle Colby Wooden, and then cornerback Benjamin St. Just, 2-year, $10 million. I mean, there was inconsistencies. There are times that Green Bay looks good. There are times that they look, definitive, and other times you're like, what the hell is happening here? Obviously, those are the times that, as a Bears fan, I enjoy. And you also have to wonder, it's like, how long is it? Is it LaFleur? Is it Love? Is it both of them? How long, Packers fans, are you patient if you're just getting so close and never making the playoffs?
I mean, I think last year they suffered devastating injuries everywhere, from Micah Parsons, Tucker Kraft. They never really had a receiver that was great. Matthew Golden didn't really. So to me, the biggest worry is, if I'm a Packers fan, a receiver. You lost Dobbs, who would have these big games for you. And again, if Christian Watson goes down, who are you throwing it to? And, but again, you have Jaden Reed, who every year looks like he's going to be that guy, and then he's a bit small, gets hurt, banged up. Josh Jacobs got older, a bit slower, the offensive line. So to me, I think you can say the Packers got a lot of bad injuries last year. They were pretty much decimated by the end and still fighting in every single game. But to me, the biggest concerns is if Matthew Golden doesn't take a bigger step, and if Christian Watson, again, who we've seen can be a great number one, but the consistency of just, you got to play a whole season, dude. You got to see you play a whole season with Jordan Love. So the Packers and Matt LaFleur's going to start feeling that pressure. I think he's going to, if they have another one of these kind of seasons where it's just like because again, those Bears games were collapses. They weren't like, they had those games, both of them, from the onside kick they let go past them to that just believable game that they lost in the playoffs. It was just, so I think, again, the Packers, didn't want to freak out. I think they were like, okay, we got a lot of bad injuries. Let's try it again. We believe in our guys, and let's see. And maybe they don't have a first round draft pick. So, and they're going to have to kind of probably pay a couple guys. And they're paying Micah Parsons now, paying Jordan Love. It's a big salary. But I'm a little worried, again, if Micah Parsons comes back and he's not 100% at the beginning, it's a tough division. You can't afford a slow start. You got to come out of the gates, because again, you go down 0-2, 1-3 to start the season. It's going to get ugly. It's going to be a fight. But I have faith in the Packers, but more than you do, obviously. Anyone?
Yeah, well, that's good. Someone's got to. I don't think anyone really has faith in the Vikings. The ghost of Sam Darnold is still smelt in the building. But they did make some changes there to back up 7 or 6-7, whatever he is. Kyler Murray, Carson Wentz come in. Kyler Murray, they get him on a deal, 1-year deal. It's like cheap. Aaron Jones re-signs, but he takes less money. The defense, you got Brian Flores is still always going to be there. They bring in like James Pierre, which is going to be good for their cornerback position because they were sort of weak there. But they still have a good offense. You still have Justin Jefferson. You still have a lot of pieces there that they should have been good. They should at least better than they were. And it's going to be interesting to see how Murray fights for his job. Who's going to get it first? Because if they do open this up and they're saying to McCarthy, yeah, you're not guaranteed.
No, he's not guaranteed.
Who gets it first? So, I mean, and I'm sure. So, yeah.
How could you think he would be? I mean, I don't think there's any chance you play JJ McCarthy this year. I think Kyler Murray's pretty much been told he's got the job. Like, I'd be shocked. I'm quite fascinated to watch it. I think it's going to be the most interesting training camp of the whole league because you're going to be hearing stories all the time, being like, he's the guy, you know, he's looking great. Justin Jefferson and him, they have such a connection. Blah 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 blah. It's going to be all that because I think they were in serious worries about losing Justin Jefferson if they had to go with JJ McCarthy again. I think they needed to do something that can get him his targets, that can get him the ball, and at least let's put. What's his name? Kyler Murray hasn't had a great offensive play caller in the last little while. Like he hasn't had anyone like Kevin O'Connell. So I think to me a fresh start is something he desperately needed for all sides. So I think this is going to be one of the more fun teams to watch in the summer. I still worry about their, again, Aaron Jones is your old and Mason is you got old running back. Addison's a bit of a mess. Like he's had problems staying out of trouble. And how's that defense going to look? So I think, again, the ghost of Sam Darnold will be hanging heavy over this team. So I hope Kyler can kind of pick it up and have his Sam Darnold year.
Yeah, and I mean, you're still looking at fourth place in the division because it's a competitive division. Obviously, Bears were first place last year, so trying to work your way up. We talk about crazy divisions, and I mean, the NFC South was probably the craziest just based on how it ended last year. Losing records, teams that had you won another game, you would have won this, and divisional games. Atlanta Falcons, they bring in Tua, 1-year deal, veteran minimum. They also bring in Trevor Siemian. And then, interesting, bring in Brian Robinson. So for any fans of Bijan going, okay, are we splitting it now? Tyler Goodson comes in. They bring in Jahan Dotson.
Somebody in their fantasy draft takes B. Robinson with the first pick, and it's Brian Robinson. How many people are going to make that mistake in round one? First pick, B. Robinson, they're taking in. It's like, oh,
exactly.
Brian.
The Brian one, yeah. They bring in Austin Hooper, signed to a 1-year, $3.25 million. Franchise tag Kyle Pitts. You've got Jahan Dotson, Zacchaeus, and then a few edge rushers you come in. There were some defensive issues that they have. Cameron Thomas is in. Sidney Brown, they bring in through a trade through the Eagles, and they sign Nick Folk to a 2-year contract. Atlanta, obviously you want some of that Kirk Cousins money if you could have it. But Atlanta sort of just looked so inconsistent last year. Whether it's coaching. How do you feel that Atlanta is poised with what they're doing in terms of how they move ahead and in terms of what Penix can show?
Well, it's not even going to be Penix. It's going to be Tua to start the season for sure. And I think the fact that they got Stefanski is a good thing. I think Stefanski just constantly keeps getting thrown with these quarterbacks. If it's Shador, it's like constantly, it just never has. He's got Tua now. The good thing I'll say about Tua is that he's a lefty and the team's been playing with a lefty for a while. So that's somewhat bit of consistency. And to be fair, Tua did lead the NFL in passing 1 year, like when he had weapons. So let's not forget, he's in a dome. Stefanski's going to find a way. He's got good weapons. They got Kyle Pitts, they got Drake London, they got Bijan. It's kind of like a familiar situation when he was in Miami. And if he can just, not do the bonehead Tua plays, he's going to be in a dome, which I think helps him. The thing I think with me as Atlanta is just, losing James Pierce to the law, to getting, defeated by the law really hurts. And then to lose, and then on top of that, not having a first round pick, which is like the 15th pick in the draft, because of that is like a double just stab to the heart with them. So, and I don't know if Stefanski is the guy that's going to get this defense cooking and get them kind of on the same page. They're going to have to kind of do a bunch of shootouts, and it's good for them that they're in an absolutely weird division that I think, again, where we saw, who knows what's going to happen. Carolina won the division, went mental this season thinking that we're amazing, we won the division. It's like, were you amazing or did you just like back into this division because everyone was terrible? Because the Falcons, if they just didn't blow like 3 of those games, would have won the division. So, I mean, they weren't far off. So they're just the Falcons. They got these Falcons games. Yeah. I think they're going to win the division next year, the Falcons, personally.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last year. It's hard to bet on them, but as you're right, with Stefanski, maybe it's different. And we talked about the Panthers, who did splash a lot of cash. They bring in Kenny Pickett, since they lost Dalton to bring him for. They signed A.J. Dillon. Then they've got re-signed David Moore, John Mechie III. Some offensive tackles they bring in. Then they bring in Devin Lloyd, who they brought in, 3-year, $45 million guaranteed. A few edge rushers, Jalen Phillips, 4-year, $120 million. And a few other defensive pieces here. Even there was just, again, there were flourishes and good signs, and there was times last year that Rico Dowdle, you're like, how the hell is he getting open here? And then you just see them just fall apart as well. There was just good games, bad games, just the inconsistency, which applies to the whole division of the NFC South. Do you think that, and they did spend a lot of cash this year. Do you think that's going to make a difference? Because this, as you say, it was a one win away from this division for everybody, pretty much. How do you feel about what the Carolina has done?
I mean, they had moments. They were a team of moments. I think Carolina. They were constantly, they had these big games where they beat the Rams and then they beat State. But to me, it's just it's the inconsistency of Bryce Young. What's he going to do? Again, are you going with Chuba Hubbard? I think Rico Dowdle left. They just don't have that consistency on offense. I think Jalen Phillips was an overpay. The guy's been torn his ACL, I think, twice, and he just had a couple good games at the end. He's never really had a dominant year, so to get $120 million, I thought was crazy. I think they just saw that they won the division and went a bit nuts at the poker table, and they were just like, yeah, we're going to buy everything.
All in
on everything. And I think we're amazing. I'm like, I don't know about that. You sure about that? And I think they're going to find it. If Bryce Young still plays the way he played last year, I just don't think this team's good enough to kind of get enough. The rest of the division isn't going to vomit on themselves like they did so much last year. I think they're going to. The division has to be better. And I'm just not a believer that Bryce Young is that dude. I haven't seen him I've seen him play well. He had a couple of really good games last year where he was just like, how is he doing this? But if I need a fourth down drive and I have Bryce Young, I'm not feeling confident that he's going to get me down the field to score a touchdown. So until maybe he takes this massive step next year, with Corker looked really good. Ted McMillan looked good. But again, I need to see more. He's still Bryce Young. He's still tiny and he still can't see over the line. So I have concern.
Yeah. Let's talk about the New Orleans Saints, who Kellen Moore coach. There were some signs where you're just watching with Tyler Shuck and you're going, all right, okay, you guys have got some stuff here. They bring in Zach Wilson and his mom. Ty Chandler. They signed Travis Etienne from Jacksonville. But and you still have Kamara, which I think they're going to get rid of. They bring in Noah Fant on a 2-year deal. They sign a deal with offensive guard David Edwards, pays him $15 million for a year. You bring in a few other pieces there, and then sign their punter Ryan Wright, 4-year, $14 million. There was flashes in New Orleans last year, and there's some things you're like, okay, the coaching was there. You're looking at the way that they played. And obviously Rattler is going to be rattling the bench, obviously, still competing against Zach Wilson. But New Orleans showed some signs that, again, they were a couple wins away from competing as well.
Yeah. I think they were the surprise of the season to me because I didn't think they'd be even remotely competitive. And then Shuck came in. Because they were playing Rattler for a bit, and he was just terrible. The Rattler sprint was bad. And Shuck came in, he's just got that name Shuck, like Shuck it, like Shucker, like a oyster shucker. He's just sitting there.
Dirty Shucker.
Yeah, dirty Shucker, mother Shucker. So he's going around. And again, Olave looked like he got kind of brought back to life in the NFL, where everyone was like, oh yeah, Chris Olave, remember him? So I think, to me, their defense had moments. Again, they're a bit old. But I think, to me, this is just a fun young team. I don't know what they're going to be. And again, we've seen guys like Shuck have these little moments, and then next year they're terrible. Or they start bad, and they're like, oh, we can get Arch Manning. Let's just tank and forget Shuck. It's going to be really interesting to see how he comes out in the preseason and in his first couple games, and if he looks like the real deal. Because he had his moments. I mean, he almost won Rookie of the Year by missing half the season and came in. Literally, you could have argued he could have been Offensive Rookie of the Year. So I like them. I think they're going to be a fun team, and I think Kellen Moore deserves a lot of credit because I think everyone just thought he was sent there to die. Oh, God. Kind of like Tom Munkin in Cleveland. And he just kind of picked it up and turned it around and turned this team into a capable offense, which is fun.
Yeah, you couldn't write them off. And there were times where you're just like, okay, they played everybody tough, and I think Kellen Moore really got them there. It will be interesting to see where Kamara goes. I wouldn't mind the Bears when we talked about running backs, maybe sniff around. Maybe there's a deal to be got because, Kamara, maybe he could have one of those Derrick Henry resurgent years where he goes to a new team. He's like, this is my last time. I'm ready to play. So maybe you haven't given up on him. The one disappointment we had, obviously, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who started the season. Game 8, everyone's like, or week 8, everyone's like, man, these guys, they're the number one in the NFC. And they just fell apart. Injuries took them down. They obviously lose Mike Evans to the Niners. They signed Jake Browning as a backup because backup quarterbacking was an issue for them. They bring in Kenneth Gainwell from the Steelers. Kate Otten, they re-sign. Not a lot of moves, though. I mean, they've got defensive lineman Sean Robinson, Alex Anzalone.
Yeah.
But, nothing really big in terms of splashing. So you wonder, what is Tampa going to do? Because do you think you have enough there? I mean, Mbuka was fine, but is it enough? Because they were spread pretty thin.
I don't know. I think this looks like this feels like it's like the dead man walking of Todd Bowles' coaching thing. It feels like, again, we've kind of seen this with Todd Bowles in the past where he'll start out really good to get the team going, but you're like, can this guy get us the championship? And again, Baker losing Mike Evans. Again, that offense looked fine. I think Baker was, again, when he plays hurt, but he still plays harder than anyone else when you watch him. Like, he was sitting out there running, like most games being like a running quarterback, which he never was. The hitting Mbuka was really good. The fact that Godwin will be now should be fully healthy this season. They kept Kate Otten, which is, I think, important to them to do. But to me, again, I think there's just not that many free agents. Again, there's so few free agents that are going to really change your team. Like, you got to have the bones there. Otherwise, you want to add guys that can kind of complement. Unless you're like the Raiders, when you have we have 100 million, we can just throw it at anyone. You only get those like a few. And the fact that Tampa is competitive for year after year after year, so money's a bit tighter. And I just think Todd Bowles just isn't the dude, and I think you're going to see that this year where there's a bit more of a fall off, and you're going to see this is 2 years in a row now. This isn't getting better. We're getting worse now as a team.
Yeah, I mean, Todd Bowles, I think it's going to be his ass on the line, and that's going to be to see that if you start off and even you go through the season with a losing record, you're not supposed to fire a coach halfway through a season, but man, if you don't get those wins together, you could see that happening. A lot of pressure on them this year. When you started so quickly last year, Baker's looking good, and just a lot of injuries. What's the plan for injuries? Obviously, nobody does have a plan for injuries, but you at least have to be aware of what other pieces you need to shift around to make your team successful. We go off to the NFC West, where the Cardinals bring in Gardner Minshew. Man, he's been around all over the place. 1 year, $5.75 million. You've got Brissett, technically, I guess, is the quarterback. They signed Tyler Algier from the Falcons. Kendrick Bourne signs a 2-year, $10 million deal. Devin Duvernay they bring in. And then a lot of offensive line. Matt Pryor, Isaac Samulo signed a 3-year, $31.5 million. And some defense, but, you sort of look and go, what is the character of the Cardinals? Who are they? What do I think of with this team? And obviously with Kyler gone, and is this just sort of a reset button and you wait to see what happens, or do you think they have plans this year?
I think they're the Jets of the NFC, where they're just like, we're playing for 2027. I think, listen, we know we're not going to be good. We're in literally the toughest division in football. We're going to go 0-6 in the division, most probably, plus match that. We're going to lose 10, 11 games easily. So we're going to be in that probably. They're going to be fighting with the Dolphins. And again, Jacoby Brissett, remember he had that one season, he had like 51 completions or something, broke an NFL record last year. He looked great. They got Marvin Harrison. What's he going to look like? Again, he hasn't really taken that next step. And to me, I just think they're just a team that knows, okay, there's a lot of really good quarterbacks coming up next year. Maybe we got a couple pieces. We could trade Budda Baker. I think you're going to see them being that kind of fire sale team. Maybe they even trade Marvin Harrison. They're just like, listen, we don't even, because again, if it's not working with him again, this would be 3 years in a row where it just feels like, is this guy good? Because we're told he was like the next great receiver, and I haven't seen it. I have the occasional game like here or there, but to me, I just think they're playing for 2027. When you see that division ahead of you, and you have Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, just try and get some real dudes in the draft. Let's make sure we get the best player that's going to be there in a couple of years when the team gets that reset. And I think they're going to be a team that is going to be really bad this year. I just think they know that, and I think they want to get an offensive coach. That's why they signed LaFleur, because I think they know they're going to be partnering him up with with a coach, with a quarterback next year. So I'd be shocked if we didn't see them trading a bunch of guys in the season.
Yeah, no, for sure. And particularly when you look at the division they're in, which is possibly one of the most competitive. Talk about the LA Rams, who were oh so close, but so far last year and having gotten beaten out by the Seahawks. You know, they re-sign a few guys. Their big signings obviously was cornerback Trent McDuffie. They bring in from the Chiefs, bring in for a 4-year, $124 million. And then they signed Jalen Watson, 3-year, $51 million, $34 million guaranteed. Sorry, yeah, Jalen Watson and Cameron Curl. So big in terms of cornerback and safeties there, in terms of shoring up their secondary. I mean, you've got Stafford. You know, maybe the running game is a little weak. You've got some good wide receivers there. What else do the Rams need to do? Because you do have a 49ers team who's rebuilding, and you've got the defending Super Bowl champions in your division.
It's a weird one because you've also Puka Nacua, who's had the weirdest offseason where he's just gone mental.
Yeah, he needs a PR officer.
Streamers, and he's saying, and again, and especially after JSN just signed that big contract, it's like if you're the Rams, you're like, are we going to give this guy that much money? Had the way he's behaved on like minimum wage. So it's like that's good. So I really like the Trent McDuffie signing. I think that was their biggest weakness. When you saw games against Seattle where they couldn't stop anybody, and the Rams have a good enough offense that if they can just get a good enough, they've got a good enough defensive line, but their secondary was their weak link last year. And I think Trent McDuffie is one of the best corners. He was amazing with the Chiefs. And the Rams are just one of those teams. They just don't care. They're just like, we got Stafford. I think they know they got Stafford for one more year. They got Devontae Adams for one more year. I think they probably even have Sean McVay for one more year. So I think they're going to all in this year. So I don't think they're done. I see them doing another big trade during the season. Maybe they trade for A.J. Brown and they're just like, let's go with the ultimate offense. Who knows?
Well, you might as well,
they're
right?
Like nuts.
Because you can't imagine that Stafford's going to stay past this year.
No.
You'd sort of go, this is sort of the age, I'm getting too old for this shit. And this is, we came so close last year. Let's go for it this year. Let's go for it. And I think a lot of people, and they're playing the first game of the season in Australia as well against 49ers. 49ers, obviously they're a big deal. 3-year deal for Mike Evans. They bring in running back Patrick Taylor. Christian Kirk, they sign in. They give a few more tools there. Offensive tackles, they go Brendan Toth, Veteran Lowe, Robert Jones. And then Dre Greenlaw, they bring back some of their guys. Nate Hobbs, they bring in. And they sign Eddie Pinheiro, the kicker, to a 4-year, $17 million. 49ers, there was kind of limp. And, Mac Jones did step up when Purdy was hurt. But they were a little bit better last year compared to 2 years ago where they really sucked. But again, it's this competitive division. They've got the coach. It looks like they've got the quarterbacks. They've got the running back, provided he stays healthy. But it's this division, right?
And unfortunately, they have a power station next to them that's melting their ACLs.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, again, I like the Mike Evans signing. I think that was their biggest weakness for Brock Purdy. Again, if you have Brock Purdy, you cannot be like, we're going to let Brock Purdy win us this game. It's like, Brock Purdy's great when he had weapons. He had his best year when Debo was at his best, and Ayuk looked really good. And and McCaffrey and Kittle, and they were just slinging it. So I think getting Mike Evans was a really smart move. I think if Ricky Pearsall could take that jump, I still think McCaffrey just showed everyone that he looks as good as, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be dominant. The offensive line, again, we don't know what's going to happen with Trent Williams. He's in a kind of like a contract battle with them. But again, if you have Shanahan, your offense is going to be fine. You're going to move the they just got decimated on defense. Bosa, Warner.
Yeah.
Like it was like one guy after the next. I could see them signing Joey Bosa as well, bringing both Bosa.
Sure. The Bosa brothers.
Yeah, I bet you they do that. I think we don't know what they're going to do with Ayuk, if they trade him. If they can trade him, who knows what's going on with him. But to me, I think the Mike Evans, Jawan Jennings, I'm surprised he didn't get more money or a lot of interest. I thought he'd be like a guy a lot of people wanted, but I think with Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall, again, Kittle coming off the injury, we don't know when he's going to be back. But in Kyle Shanahan, you trust. The guy's going to get you points.
Let's talk about the Super Bowl champs. Oh, it's always hard to keep your team after winning a Super Bowl because everyone wants to get paid. And that did happen. They did pay Jackson Smith and Jigba. 4-year, $168.6 million, highest paid wide receiver in the game. Rashid Shaheed, who obviously they brought in, who played really well, 3 years, $51 million. They bring in, re-signed Jake Bobo, who didn't really do that much. Emmanuel Wilson they bring in, obviously because Kenneth Walker III is gone. Line back a lot of the other guys, but the pressure is on the Seahawks to stay competitive. You're a Super Bowl champ. How do you hold on to that?
Well, the biggest loss is your offensive coordinator, right? Losing Kubiak. So how's that going to affect it? And I think Kenneth Walker, what he did in that Super Bowl showed how important he was in it. If you think Charbonnet is the guy, I think they're going to draft another running back. I think maybe like 3rd, 4th round, get someone who let Charbonnet take the reins, but get a guy who can be a bit more of a home run hitter. Let Charbonnet get the goal line back, so he could be a guy like Jamal Williams a couple of years ago, who gets like 16 touchdowns. I think I don't love the Shaheed money. I don't see what getting like 25 yards a game makes you get that much money as a receiver. I was a little surprised. He's a good punt returner and kick returner as well. Maybe they took that into. But again, I think just getting JSN signed, that offense should, as long as Darnold, and then you got Mike McDonald in that defense. He's going to have that defense rocking every single week. You got to just give them the benefit of the doubt. But we see losing an offensive coordinator, how's that going to affect them? Because they're still in that tough division, and you're going to have to play Stafford. You're still going to have to play Shanahan. So that defense, as long as that defense can stay healthy and stay consistent and the same players, they should still be fine and still probably win around 10, 11 games.
Yeah, I mean, that is the problem when you get rid of coaches. And I think that, obviously is when we have Ben Johnson and for Dan Campbell losing it. When you lose the chefs in the kitchen, it's very hard to duplicate the recipe because everyone else knows how to make it now. And I think that's going to be a problem with them as well. And, holding on, I mean, I think a lot of people were surprised that maybe Seattle made it through. There was a lot of injuries. There was a lot of misfortune on some of the teams. I would find it incredulous for them to repeat.
Yeah.
But stranger things have happened. That's it for our NFC free agency. Ryan, I'll be back with the UFL. No, I don't know. It's probably starting soon.
I think it starts today.
Football.
Actually. I think it starts today.
I think it does. I watched the Jays game last night, and they win their first game. But nice. Yeah, UFL, I believe it would be today as well. So football is back, baby. But the NFL will be watching too, because there's always guys that get signed out of that as well. That's it for this podcast episode, folks. Ryan will be back. We'll be back next week, and hopefully there'll be more NFL news. Thanks a lot for listening.